and trust him in his presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. Do the second. All to Jesus I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken, take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. On the last. All to Jesus I surrender now. I feel the sacred flame. Oh, the joy of full salvation. Glory, glory to his name. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. Amen. Beautiful song. Most people use that mainly, though, as a invitation song, and it's good for that. I'm glad for it, but we just needed it tonight for other purposes. Got your Bibles, Exodus chapter number 20. I do desire your prayers tonight. My back hurts all the time anyway, but anytime I try to get out and do any physical labor, it just tears it up that much more. And I've tried today to do a little bit, and it kind of stirred up. So please pray for me. I don't know how long I'll be able to stand. I'm not planning on preaching long anyway. Chapter number 20. Exodus chapter number 20. Very famous, but probably one of the most controversial portions of the Bible. I mean, big fights have actually happened through the centuries. Big fights just here recently in the last several years, and then the last 40 or 50 years about the Ten Commandments. I'm basically just doing a introduction, I guess, tonight about it, praying if the Lord would have us to do an in-depth study on it. We may or may not. We're just trying to follow him. But let's read tonight, if you will. Follow along with me. Bear with me just a second. Let me get my underline thing here. All right, Exodus 20, verse number 1. God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. In case you're not sure in your Bible, I'll try to tell you as we go along. Verse number 3 is the first commandment. And verse number 4 is the second. Verse number 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I am the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of thy fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation, them that hate me, showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. This is the third commandment, verse number 7. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's number 4 there, verse number 8. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day unto the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughters, nor thy manservants, nor thy maidservants, nor thy cattle, nor thy strangers that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Now, verse number 12 is the fifth commandment. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The next one is 6. In fact, just kind of go down the numbers there. That's the way they will be. Verse number 6, thou shalt not kill. Number 7 is, thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 8, thou shalt not steal. Number 9, thou shalt not bear false witnesses against thy neighbor. And then 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Now, it is amazing to me that our nation was founded on God and godly principles and the Ten Commandments. And no wonder it is a big controversy, is because the world nowadays, they don't want God, much less any of his restraints that he puts on anybody. And I love Brother Roy Moore, Judge Moore, who actually went up against the states and lost his job because of it, because he wanted the Ten Commandments in his courtroom. Now, sure, he lost his job, but if we had him here tonight, I would imagine, if it's like I'm thinking that it is, he's probably been blessed way more by what he done, by standing on God and God's word and not letting them just bully him around, that he stood for the commandments. Now look, I want you to understand this, and I think most of you know this tonight, but just in case you don't, I don't believe that the Ten Commandments can get you to heaven. In fact, the Bible says that all it does is points you and shows you what is wrong and how to do what's right. It's something for us to live by, but it's not to get us to heaven. There were several things, though, that God done, that the reasons that he wrote the law. If you want to write these down real quick, you can. The first one was to reveal his glory and his holiness. Truly that does do that. Number 2, it reveals to man your sinfulness. That's what Paul said. I would not have known sin if it hadn't have been for the law. Take it for granted that a lot of people know what sin is, but I go back to this girl that I dated in high school, and I mean, she lived 2 doors down from a Baptist church. And I was flabbergasted that this girl did not know who Noah and the ark was. Well, come to find out, she didn't know nothing else about the Bible either. And we're living in America, in the Bible Belt. Why didn't she know about God and God's commandments and his law? And you would be surprised, the people that you work by every day, even family members that you have who don't know God. They don't know Jesus, much less his commandments. And no wonder our nation's in the shape that it's in, because when you get rid of God and you get rid of his commandments, then you're in bad shape. Now the third one is this. It was to mark Israel as his chosen and separated people from the heathen nations around them. Now, boy, that truly did do that. It set them apart. And you as I, as a Christian tonight, we're not doing it to go to heaven, but we're keeping them because we are going to heaven. I truly believe this, and I say this a good bit. I believe I could go out tonight and drink a beer, even get dog drunk, and I believe I'd still go to heaven. I don't believe my salvation is based on whether I do or do not. Now, I know what it says. I know that it says no drunkards would enter therein. Now, I'm not preaching that we've got a license to sin, but I'm saying that if we do, the Bible says we have an advocate with the Father. Now, there's a lot of people that try to do that. They say, okay, God, these are your commandments, and I'm going to try my best to not break them. And they're thinking that they're going to get into heaven that way. And then we've got other, I call them religious nuts, because that's really what they are. They claim they've never committed broke any of these commandments. Well, very first thing they've done right then is broke one of them, and they've lied. Because there is no human being alive ever been born before me and you, nor during our time, nor after our time, who is perfect. The only one was Jesus. And these folks run around saying they don't do this or they don't do that. Well, they may not break this one, but I promise you they break one of the others. And the Bible said this: if you've offended in one, then you've offended in all. So, hey guys, the Bible said we were born in iniquity. And so you're just that way because of what Adam and Eve did. I was actually mad at Adam and Eve today. I was trying to dig a root up, and I got to thinking, boy, that curse. It was simply because of y'all. Here I am out here fighting with this thing, and I could have been naked doing it. I started sweating. I said, so now here are 3 things because of Adam and Eve. I'm having to wear clothes. I'm fighting with this. There were briars all around me, and I was sweating. Simply because of what our mother and dad done. And they were the mother and dad of everybody. Don't let nobody kid you. But because they broke God's commandment when he said, do not eat it. They done it, and you see where we are. So you can't take the 10 Commandments lightly. You've got to take them seriously. Jesus said this: I came not to condemn the law, but actually to fulfill the law. We're saved by grace through faith. But the law is there. It's to point us to God and to get us. Basically, all it does is it walks you by the hand right up to Calvary's cross. Amen. And from there, you're separated as far as getting to heaven. And then we pick it back up and we do it because we're saved. You say, well, why do we have to do that? Well, one thing, if you don't commit adultery, you won't get your brain blowed out. Because I've got a cousin who really done that. He's so blessed. In fact, if I could get him here tonight, he was laying in the bed with his best friend's wife, and the man come in and point blank shot him. He was aiming for here, but shot him here, went in one side of his neck and come out the other. Miracle that he didn't die. Miracle that it didn't tear all of this up. But now just think, had he have done what God told him to do, thou shalt not, then he wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have been that close to death. But think about this. Not only did it just affect him, but the whole family, the whole neighborhood, everybody, simply because that man and woman done that, it busted up. We know his family and her family. And then her husband's family too. So the 10 Commandments are really very vital in our lives today. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily like all of them. I'm not going to tell you which ones I do and I don't like, but there's some I don't like. There's some things that God says in his word that I don't like. Makes me mad, actually. But you know what? I try to keep them, though. I try to do what he says. Even because I don't like them, don't make it right. There's so many people running around today saying, well, I don't like it and I just do what I want. I hate this new modern day thought and philosophy. Live, love, and laugh. Now, you up front, it don't sound that bad, and you may even have it in your house. I'm not going to come to your house and judge you if you do. My point is this. That is the mentality of America today. If it feels good, do it. And it don't matter who it affects. They say, well, I don't care if it affects you or anybody else. The epidemic of AIDS, simply just that one disease. How many thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, who have died because of that? Think about this. Think about the innocent babies that have been born to moms who had AIDS and it passed on to that baby simply because somebody else. Think of the innocent people, EMTs, stuff of that nature, who have got AIDS because somebody else had it and the blood got on them. Man, tell me one sin does not affect everybody. It does. Yeah. So God's 10 Commandments here are not suggestions. They're there for a reason. They're there, number one, to get us to worship him. But then number two, it's to help us with society, your neighbors and of that such. I got to hurry up here. All right, the law was given Israel to prepare Israel for the coming of Jesus. Now, do you remember when Abraham sent out for his son Isaac a wife? And his servant said, what if I can't find a woman? He says, I'll tell you what, you go and I want you to get a wife from within our tribe, but carry 10 camels with you. And you know that is a picture, a prophetic picture tonight of a bride for Christ. This is what the 10 commandments were representing, the 10 laws here. Now, remember, that don't get you saved, but it's going to get you to the Father, to the husband, and that's what we are, the bride of Christ. He's the groom, and boy, I love it when God has pictures here and there, and we can tie this in with that. Now, whether we can or not, it's still God's law, but I love it when we can do that. It just gives us such good pictures. Then the next point was this: to illustrate in type and ceremony the person and ministry of Jesus. And it truly is tonight. For everything Christ came to do was to fulfill that law and to help us with it, to point us to God, get us in a right relationship with God. Amen. Boy, I hope that you're doing that. Here's what the law does. It mirrors. If you look at the law and hold it up to you, either you're right with it or you're wrong with it. I can go in, and I'm not picking on women, okay? But I think it ought to be a federal law that before every man ever gets married, they've got to bring his bridegroom in with no makeup, messed up hair, in a nightgown. Amen. And let him look at her without all that war paint on, because it's false. You're not getting the true picture of what you're fixing to marry. Now, us guys, we just got that natural raw beauty, and you girls right. Don't have to worry about it. That's right. But that's what the law does. You can go in and you're going to look at it, and it's going to show you what you truly are. You can't hide from it. It's going to tell you, did you commit adultery? Well, then you're an adulterer. Did you steal? Well, then you're a thief. It's none of this. We're going to give it an alternate name. They can try to put crayons on it all they want to, but listen to what God said and what He did. He wrote 10 commandments on 2 tablets with His finger. It wasn't with a pencil. It wasn't with invisible ink, but God wrote it Himself with His finger. It's in stone. You cannot change it. Amen. I don't care what the liberals say, think, or like. It's there, and it's for a reason. So I got to hurry here real quick. It's a yoke. It brings bondage since the flesh finds it impossible to keep it. And it does. There is no way that you're going to keep all of these commandments. Right. You may be good in one, but somewhere down the line, and this is just my thoughts, but I believe number 10 gets every human being alive. If you want to read it with me real quick. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor any other thing that is thy neighbor's. I believe covetousness is what drives the world. Because if you see somebody else with, have y'all ever done that? You see somebody else with something, I don't care if it's been a gun, a vehicle, clothing, whatever it is, you start to covet after that if you don't watch it very, very closely. It's hard to not covet, especially when you see something nice. And, us men, Edie fusses at me. I really don't know how many guns I got. I hadn't counted them in a while. But there's never enough. You always need one more. She said, well, you can't carry but one hunting at a time. I said, yeah, but you got to have one to hunt this. Amen. Well, she says the same thing about my fishing poles. Can't you catch every fish on one pole? Well, no, you can't. You got to have a pole for this, that, and other. So, but the difference now, same way with her clothing. You wear this. You don't have to have all these clothes. But what I'm saying is covet. Number 10, I believe, gets every human being alive. And Satan knows it. And this is one that he pushes the envelope onto us as Christians immensely. He makes us want stuff. You don't think I'm right? Tell me why this side of the church is empty tonight. Amen. One reason being because half of them are working or either worked late to pay bills for things that they didn't need. Now let's be honest. How many people really need what all we've got? We've got more clothing. We've got we've got so much in abundance, but yet America is driven by the physical things that we can touch, taste, feel, and smell and hear. And we're killing ourselves to try to get it. And yet God said, thou shalt not covet. Ain't getting very many amen, but I didn't figure I would. So anyway, the law was unable to do certain things. Number one, make anybody perfect. You can't, it's just simply not possible to make anybody perfect. It will not justify sins either. We are saved by grace through faith, period. There's no way you could keep them, but if you kept 9 of them, you'd still be a sinner on your way to heaven, to hell. It does not give righteousness. Have you ever met these people that I call religious nuts again? They look down their long nose at you and they'll condemn you. Now, I'm not for this, and I don't believe you go to heaven or hell because of it, but have you ever had him or heard anybody condemn somebody for smoking? So you're going to go to hell if you smoke a cigarette. Preachers used to preach that. I've heard them, and I've heard people in the congregation that they'd say the same thing to women about wearing makeup. Look, I don't believe either one of them is going to send you to heaven or hell. He said that you've got to be born again. That's what you got to be there. But what we're talking about is you keep the law and people act like they're so righteous, like they're so above everybody else. I'm uncouth. My brother used to call me a dad Jane uncouth heathen. When we was growing up, he'd get mad at me. I know I'm a redneck. And I probably say things in the pulpit that some other preachers might not. But my intentions are this. I never want you to think I'm up here and you're down here. I grew up with preachers like that you thought they were that they walked on water, that they never sinned. But when I become a man, I begin to think and realize, hey, they put their shoes on just like I do. They may not tell you they lust, but I promise you most of them do. They may not tell you they lose their temper, but probably most of them do. But yet you have so many things. Well, I'm keeping at least 8 of them covenants, them commandments, so I'm holier than thou. The 10 Commandments was never intended for that. It'll never give you peace. There's only one way you're going to get peace, and that is through having Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Bar none. That's the only way you're going to get it. Now, I love it. He said, my peace I've given you. My peace I leave with you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto thee. Then he said, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. If you want peace, you got to know Christ. Now, I'm finishing with this. The law was just merely given as a guideline for living. That, and it saves no person. It really don't. So I hope you will join me with trying to spread the word that there's a mentality in America, well, worldwide, that Baptists believe we do have a license to sin, that we can just go out and live any old way we want to. I know we're under grace. I truly understand it, and I'm thankful that we are. But I believe if you're saved, you won't just keep living in a sin. You may mess up here and there, but you're going to strive your best to keep these commandments. Now, I don't think you can do all 10 in a day or all the time. You're going to be up and down. But I believe we need to strive to do what God's asked us to do. Look, not stealing something is just going to keep you alive. I had a buddy who served 2 terms in Turkey in the military. He said the first time you stole over there, they cut your thumb off. The next time it was your hand. The third time it was your head. He said, very little crimes in Turkey. And this is what God's saying. Don't steal and somebody won't beat you up or kill you. Or you won't get locked up. There are reasons for these commandments other than just God said do or don't. Amen. So Y'all help me pray, we may do a really in-depth on it, I don't know, just started on it, so help me pray. Any questions, thoughts, or comments, something you wanna add to, or? Do y'all feel like people can keep all of them? I don't. Have you ever met